on. For those of you watching the video stream, that's Daisy's nose. She likes to give me a hug. I'm sorry. This is going to sound weird on the radio show, but if you go to the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see Daisy, my lab, joining the Carolina Contractor Show. Can you hop down there later?
I've never heard of an emotional support dog for a radio show.
Yeah, we're emotional support people for this dog. She just comes up and demands hugs sometimes. Hey, man, I want to ask you a question before we start the show. What do you think is the most common time of year people sell their houses?
I would say right now, going into spring, school's out, real estate's in. And if you're going to make the move, especially if you have children, now's the time to do it. I'd say that the sweet spot part of that is that inventory still isn't back where it was. So folks still don't have a lot to choose from. And if you have a nice house and you want to put it on the market, I think now's the time to do it.
Yeah, I think also when you're waiting for your kids to get out of school for the year, because if you have to move to another school district, that's a big thing to consider. So you try to get that year done. I know some people have moved and left their kids in the district if they've moved in the middle of the year and they weren't unreasonably far away, but they keep them in there. Yeah, you're right. Spring is the time. I found that Zillow.com had that stat up there, and it's very common. And today's show is kind of based on home sellers. We've talked about in past episodes of the Carolina Contractor Show return on investment, or ROI, but when you're selling a house, there's things you can do to increase it. And there's a false belief that you just have to put a sign out in your yard now and people will buy your house, but you still shouldn't leave money on the table. And there's some investments that you can make to increase the sale price of your house and reduce allowances or fees you have to give up otherwise. And we'll get on with that subject a little bit later. But again, this is the Carolina Contractor Show. My name is Eric Smith. I do inside sales for Home Builder Supply. I also have an emotional support lab called Daisy, who was just on video a few minutes ago. She might pop in later, and I'll advise everybody to check out the website to get the links to the YouTube show, because we put up bunches and bunches of videos at that site. Across from me, the lovely, the talented general contractor, Donnie Blanchard, also owner of SureTop Roofing, also owner of Blanchard Building Company. Are you going to have any pets join the show today?
No, all my pets are accounted for now, and I locked them out of the room on purpose, but I liked what you did there, so maybe I'll try that next week.
I've got another dog and 3 cats. One of them cost us a $1,000 vet bill the other day, but we'll talk about that at another time. So again, go to the website, thecarolinacontractor.com. As I mentioned, Donnie uploads videos now. We are on YouTube. You can find the link for that. We've got IG, a bunch of other social media, including Facebook. And then if you have a question about your house, maybe you have a question about today's show when we get into it, you can ask the contractor, the ATC, as I like to call it. And Donnie is, of course, our general contractor, licensed in the great state of North Carolina. So any question you have about your house, the inside, the outside, up, down, roof, basements, grilling, electrical, plumbing, he's going to answer those questions. So submit them there. Last time I'm going to say it, at least for this segment, thecarolinacontractor.com. Now, Donnie, we've done a show, I'm sure you remember because you were part of it, on ROI in the past. I don't think we've done one of ROI you can perform before you put your house on the market. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think we did it. We did a few things in terms of remodeling and what you can do to improve the value of your house. But in terms of aggressive ROI, which is what we're going to talk about today, I don't think we've nailed anything like this. So everything that we're going to cover is basically not a quick fix, but none of these are 2 month long projects. But all the items that we're going to talk about definitely contribute to the value of your house. And like you mentioned earlier, you don't want to leave money on the table. Everybody wants to make the max amount they can. And a lot of these things are just DIY, and a lot of these are things that you can spend a little bit of money and get a lot of return.
Yeah, and it's really important because we sometimes in the selling market, people selling houses leave stuff unfixed because they just want to sell the house and they don't think the money they invest is going to have any real impact. Later in the show, I'll get into what a real estate agent said that I thought was way off. I'm just going to say it was bad advice on things that you shouldn't fix. It was their opinion, but we'll get in that in a couple minutes. So again, we want to start off with a couple places of where you would start doing some renovations, maybe too big of a word, Donnie, but some places you can make an improvement in your house to increase the value and appeal to potential buyers. Where is an obvious place in a house you would start first?
So what I'm seeing are kitchen renovations seem to be the most popular because kitchens sell houses. Let's not hide the fact that if you walk in, and people preach to us that the wife makes the decision most of the time, but nobody wants to buy a house with an ugly kitchen. They want to move right in and they want to cook that first meal for their family. So I think that to target what matters most to a potential buyer, the kitchen is definitely the place to start. And kitchen renovations don't have to be crazy. If you have Formica countertops, then level one granite is very affordable. And something else that's becoming more popular or has become more popular in the last couple of years. I put it in just about every house I've done in the recent months, but quartzite, another version of solid surface is another option, and the prices come down on quartz quite a bit. So it's almost neck and neck with level one granite. The upside to quartz is it's not porous. So where granite, you have to reseal it every so many years, especially in a wet area around a sink. Quartz doesn't have to be resealed, and in terms of hardness, it's the king of all solid surface. I saw a video a while back where basically they dropped a bowling ball out of a third story window onto granite, and then onto Formica countertops. And I think there's one more solid surface that they sell at the big box store, but then they dropped it on quartz, and it was the only one that didn't break. So not porous, and density wise, it's the king. But you can add new countertops for not as much as you think. $2,000-3,000 usually gets that done. And something that I've even considered doing in my personal house is changing out my cabinet doors. If you want a different look in your kitchen, or if you want to renovate the kitchen without replacing all the cabinets, the boxes are already in place. So as long as the layout works for you, then you can have your cabinets painted, new cabinet doors, and quartz countertops installed for probably in the neighborhood of $5,000. And I would say that the return on that is probably upwards of 20K or so.
And I think if you're a bowler who tends to drop your bowling ball from 30 feet, you can take solace or comfort, I guess would be the word, in knowing that if you were clumsy, you wouldn't break your countertop. One thing you can also do in a kitchen that's pretty easy, you can install new lighting, whether it's track lighting or just the, what do you call them, the countersunk lights. If you already
Yep.
have them, just changing those from standard to LED. One thing I like to do, and you find this in home improvement stores, we sell some of them too, just changing the hardware on your cabinets and your drawers, changing the knobs and stuff can totally make the room feel or look different or just look new. So instead of old, worn, scratched handles and knobs on the items in the kitchen, they're shiny and new. And that can kind of, I don't want to say it hides anything, but it does show that, hey, this is looking nice and it looks a little bit sharper. So obviously, kitchen renovations make a big difference in both aesthetics and functionality. Move to another room. What would you change in? I don't know. I guess bathrooms are probably big.
Bathrooms are huge, and I would say that people might think that it's a big ticket item to change out the fixtures in the bathroom, but that's exactly where I would start. So fixtures um, aren't very pricey. If you shop at a big box store, even online, and I'm loyal to my supply house folks who specialize in plumbing and electrical, but darn it, they are expensive. And taking the list from one of those stores and save somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 just by getting creative and spending a couple of nights online. And one of the most recent houses I've done, I think the quote came in at the plumbing supply at $13,000, and they got everything, toilets included, for about $2,800. So toilets could be anywhere from $130 to $300, depending on all the bells and whistles. Bells and whistles doesn't sound right with a toilet, but you know what I mean. So, changing those out, $1,000 can get you all new fixtures in several bathrooms. And if there's anything else you can do on the cheap, I would say that changing out a vanity cabinet, a lot of times you get these combos, and I will endorse the big box store on this one because they will have several things on sale that they're just trying to move out of that plumbing or electrical department. And you can get a combo vanity cabinet with a nice countertop that comes with it, and all you have to really buy is the faucet after that, and that is totally DIY. You cut the caulk around the solid surfaces there, if that's what you have. Pop a few screws out of the back of the cabinet, detach the drain and the supply lines, and I'd say in 2 hours you've got a brand new vanity cabinet. And if you can get that thing for $200 or $300, that's a win all day long.
And would you explain PEM or PME for people?
Plumbing, mechanical, electrical is the acronym that PME is made for. So in my world, I just take for granted that everybody knows what that means. So when we're talking about inspections or, the major things in the house that have to be inspected, PME, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, all fall in that category.
So if you're going to put in a vanity and you got a different shape and you've got to move some pipes, you might think not too hard of a project to do, and it's worth considering, especially if it's just a drain. But you got to take that in consideration. But a demo or too deep a renovation of a bathroom, you're going to get involved in moving lights or plumbing or especially pressurized lines or anything like that. Now you could not only have a problem that drags on for several days to work, you might end up having to call somebody. So those are simple things that Donnie outlined that you can do that, again, don't cost a lot. $1,000, you could completely redo your bathroom with, like he said, a toilet, a vanity, new lights, wallpaper, or painting, just dressing it up, and it makes a big difference. Now, at the beginning of the show, Donnie, I mentioned that I indirectly chatted with a real estate agent who was talking about things you can do to sell your house. And one of the things she said was, don't update invisible things. She considers invisible things HVAC and roofing, because you don't necessarily look at them directly. Your roof's on your house. Hey, that's good. There's an AC unit out in the backyard and I hear it running. Things must be good. She said you don't get a return on investment when doing that. So when you go to sell the house, if you spent $10,000 on a HVAC system and put a new one in, you'll never get that back in the selling price. And I said, you dang right, you sure would get it back easily, because if you hire an inspector to go through a house you're getting ready to buy, he's going to check the roof and the HVAC. And I'd rather he not come back and say, well, the house is okay, except you're going to ask for an allowance for 15,000 for a roof and 20 for 2 new HVAC systems.
Yeah, and you know this, and anybody who listens to the show knows this, but we preach all the time about HVAC and roofing are your big ticket items on the house that are guaranteed to have to be updated, and they're guaranteed to wear out. They both have limited lifespans. Usually, with HVAC, 15 years is a good run. 15 years for something in an older home, especially where it's not very well insulated, it runs a lot more than what we have in these newer houses. But with a roof, it used to be 20 to 25 years for a 3-tab shingle, and then it was 30 years for an architectural. And then basically the shingle manufacturers came out with this 50-year warranty that we offer with SureTop. But those are two things that you cannot ignore. And shame on that realtor for saying that those are things that are hidden, because she must be caught up in the days of the quick sale. But, in her defense, there's no defense for her, but in her defense, there was a time 2 years ago when there was so little inventory that people were buying houses sight unseen with no home inspection. And that sounds insane to
Yep.
me, but it happened a lot. And my home inspector friends, they vented to me about it. They said, this is nuts. We've never seen anything like this. But fortunately, even though the inventory isn't back where it was 5 years ago, people are getting more and more wise. That interest rate shooting up made people think a little harder about that. So home inspections are a thing again. But yeah, that's definitely something that you shouldn't ignore. And for a real estate agent to try to call that hidden, that was not correct, because a home inspector is definitely going to catch that. There's a little tag on your condenser unit. That's the thing with the big fan in it that sits outside your house, usually on the back or the side.
Mhm.
And you can take a picture of that tag and Google the model number, and it'll tell you when that was manufactured and exactly how many tons. It'll tell you the SEER rating, which is all important stuff to know. And if you bought a house and say that was not documented, then that's something you should get a hold of, because you need to keep an eye on it to know, when you should anticipate maybe losing your air conditioning or your heating.
And again, SureTop Roofing does a free estimate, so you can always call a pro like you to come and look at your roof and say, hey, if you're going to put this on the market in the next few months, you really should take care of this, because an inspector is going to notice it. And you could also be in a position to say, and trust me, you'll be able to get your investment back on this in the price of the house, because it's going to make a homeowner happy when they hear, by the way, I have a new roof on this house. It's only a few months old and it's under warranty and it transfers to you.
Yep. And
Man, that's a great selling point. Here comes
yep,
your return on your investment.
that does just apply to roofing. Even though our warranty is 50 years and it's transferable one time, um, somebody schooled me on the fact not long ago that everything in North Carolina is transferable one time. So, all your systems, the warranty should go with the new homeowner at least once. And so, and I liked what you said a second ago that um, they're gonna ask you for a concession if you don't replace the roof and you don't replace the HVAC, and they know they've only got a couple years to pay for those big ticket items. They can offer you whatever they want. They can say, "Well, I think it's worth this," and at that point, it's just objective. And the smart thing to do is to go ahead and replace it, and that way you get to shop around. You can get all your free estimates, and you can go with whoever you feel comfortable with. But those items can vary by thousands of dollars. And we get people tell us all the time with SureTop that, hey, we got your estimate, and somebody was $3,000 higher than you. So some people just try to hit home runs on every job, but it's important on those big ticket items definitely to shop around, because that way you dictate that price and not the potential buyer wanting to give you a high price concession.
And we're not bashing on real estate agents. They're very important, but you said, some, especially during the pandemic, we're just trying to sell houses. You do have to realize a real estate agent's number one job is to sell your house. And that's why I think it's also wise to get a home inspector before you put your house on the market, because they're unbiased in that way. They just want to sit there and say, your house needs this done. This looks great. This looks bad. Let the real estate agent market your house, not tell you what to fix or not fix. Hey, another easy thing I thought about, with all the rain we've had and it's washing away the pollen, everybody's yard looks better. It's getting a little bit of grass is greening up, and flowers starting to bloom, and everybody's kind of now on a equal level on their yard. But curb appeal, by its name, it's designed to catch a potential homeowner's eye right as they pull up, or in some cases, they drive by a house a day or two before they're going to do a tour of it. What are some of the things there? Because I know with you, when you pull up to a house, you notice the roof probably.
Oh yeah, my eyes are always drawn to the roof. I just can't help it. I've seen too many. But yeah, curb appeal is probably the biggest thing, because before they walk in the house, that's their very first impression. And I think with curb appeal, your your veneer matters a lot. If you have old windows, that matters too. But I'll start with the veneer, and I'll say that if you have brick or even siding, it doesn't hurt to pressure wash that. Mold or mildew, things like that are notorious for building up on the north side. So if your house faces north, you definitely need to maintain that yearly. It'll make your life a lot easier. If you're going to put it on the market, that's a must do. The windows, and we'll get to the efficiency portion of that, but I'll say that when we flipped those 10 houses for the TV show last year, I have never painted vinyl siding. I didn't know it was a possibility. And number three, I didn't know it looked that good. I mean, there's a paint with Sherwin-Williams called Super Paint, and they did it. I gave it the eye test and the touch test, and I thought, wow. I mean, for a fraction of what you can replace the vinyl siding for, you can have it painted, and pretty quick and easy. It's a 1-day thing, but completely changed the look of the house. And moving into the windows are the next thing they're going to see, and that, I'd say, big ticket item wise, depending on the size of the house, the windows fall right behind the roof and the HVAC. But old windows are garbage. They're not even an R1 on the R value scale. And I would say that R value, by the way, resistance to heat flow, meaning the way you lose or gain heat. Of course, the house is gaining heat in the summer and it's losing heat in the winter. But the new windows are an R3, and that doesn't sound like a lot. But when you get into heat transfer and how the energy code dictates that the new windows are made, an R3 is pretty darn good. And especially compared to an old leaky wood window, the cheapest, I tell people all the time, the cheapest window that you can buy today is better than the best window you could buy just 10 years ago. So energy code dictates all the things like argon gas, low E coating, and things that you just don't think about until you read the label. But window replacement definitely has a big ROI.
I want to mention something about windows also, and we've talked about it in the past. If you have screens on your windows, consider taking them off for any showings, because old screens look dingy and gray or black. If they're chrome trimmed and that's got some discoloration to it, it looks bad and it makes your windows look old. But if you take the screens off and clean the windows, they really sparkle. I challenge you right now, if you have screens on your own windows, drive to your neighborhood and tell me which houses you look at and think, wow, that house is really sparkling, and tell me if the windows have screens or not. You might need them because you have cats or you want to keep bugs out. I completely understand. I'm not telling you to get rid of your screens, but if you're going to show a house, I say take them out, put them in a storage room, because that can affect the curb appeal by stopping it from looking dungy and dirty. Also, the obvious stuff, if you're putting your house on the market, you got to have it mowed and trimmed and keep the driveway blown. Your front porch, um, I guess you could kind of stage it if you've got rocking chairs, but if you got kids' toys and lawnmower parts and half of a Harley Davidson, you might want to move them somewhere else. So the moment someone pulls up to the front of the house, you're like going, man, it looks nice. It's sharp and clean and shiny. I guess you could call the house shiny after you've done a pressure wash.
Yeah, for sure. And if we're going to add, I had two more things in mind that I want to add. Since we're on curb appeal, I'll hit one that's cosmetic. And with the TV show last year, we added accent walls to almost every single house. And I watched the potential buyers' faces when they walked in there, and they just lit up. They turned the corner and they saw this accent wall and they thought, oh my gosh, I want this bedroom, because we would do it on the headboard side of the master, or we would do it on the living room wall opposite the TV. And it's just a cheap way to set off that room. And of course, if you're going to paint, that's the perfect time to do the accent wall, because you being in building supply, I know you're creative with this. 1x4 ripped in half is the perfect wood. I would think we mentioned a couple weeks ago about accent walls, and they sell something called basswood, which is used for face frames on cabinets. It's really pricey, but a finished 1x4 does the same exact thing. You just have to run it through a table saw and do a little bit more of the labor, but it's less than half the price. But you can Google pictures for accent walls and get so many ideas. And I would say the average trim carpenter is more than capable of doing an accent wall. And the other thing, not to bounce around on you, but we touched on the windows being, I would say windows fall in the category of efficiency and cosmetic. But on the efficiency end of things, if you're going to sell that house and a home inspector is going to be involved with the sale, you want to make sure your insulation is up to par. Basically, the most recent code is R38 in the attic. R13 is the minimum in the walls, but a lot of times you don't have a way to check that. An R15 will fit in a 2x4 cavity, side note there. And underneath the house is probably the one that people check the most, because an R19 is the code. A lot of side notes here, but if you do an insulation yourself, the paper always goes towards the heated side. So underneath the house, the paper does not get stapled to the bottom of the floor joist. Paper goes up against the subfloor, and R19 is the code. And while we're in that crawl space, you definitely want to make sure you have vapor barrier. Usually a 6 mil plastic is what people have. If you're going to do this, ask your insulation contractor how much it is to upgrade to 10 mil plastic, especially if you're in the circumstance where you're not going to sell the house. But it's not very much more money to go to the 10 mil from the 6 mil, and it does a much better job.
We have a lot of clients that come in, contractors, and they buy the plastic just for that reason. And we also have a couple contractors. Well, they're not general contractors or building contractors. They own pest control services. And it's very common now for pest control services, since a lot of them crawl under your house. If you got a crawl space, they now do the plastic. So they usually get the 6 mil. We do sell it in different thicknesses, but that usually is the standard, a 6 mil roll that they put down as a vapor barrier. I have that at my house. It made a difference. They talked about putting a humidifier in, but they said, let's try the plastic first. And that solved the problem. So
And it worked.
For $200 or $300, and that included the labor. If you want to do it yourself, you can pick up a roll that should cover the majority of a crawl space for $110 all day. Hey, another thing I just thought of, Donnie, is a lot of people have bonus rooms. Maybe it's a third floor, maybe it's a basement or something, and they've just kind of left the studs, and they either use it for storage or they don't care. Probably a pretty important thing just to get some drywall and maybe a coat of paint and finish off those bonus rooms before you put it on the market, so it looks like it's a usable space.
Oh, absolutely. That just contributes to your square footage, and that's always going to be a bonus. Oh,
All
no
right.
pun intended. Bonus room. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. Took me a second. I'm slow. Hey, this is kind of getting into staging. Do you think staging is something that homeowners should use, or even hire a pro to really make the house on the inside stand out? I guess with your show, and let me get back to that. I'm off track now too, Donnie. For people who don't know, Donnie's a general contractor for season 2 of the show 50/50 Flip. It's on Hulu and it's on A&E Network. And what they do is flip houses, and Donnie does work for them. And as the general contractor on the show, So for those of you that were wondering when he kept saying on the show, on the TV show, that's what that is. So you can check that out. But do you think they did a lot of staging? Do you think the everyday home seller should do staging?
There are two ways to look at that. I would say if you're going to move your house as is, or if you need to sell it quick, or if it's an older home and really, staging isn't going to look right to bring all this nice new furniture in there because you're going to mask old floors and old kitchens and things. If you're not going to do anything to it, I'd say it's probably not worth it to stage. I think it ran about $400 a month or every 2 weeks, something like that. But what this show is about today is getting the max return on your investment if you are planning to sell your house. So, in that circumstance, I'd say it's totally warranted. For $400 every 2 weeks, because now it doesn't take much more than 2 weeks. If you have an attractive house in an attractive location and you've done these renovations that we mentioned earlier in the show, then I think all day long. It's like working out for 6 months and then going out in gym clothes. You're gonna dress. You need to dress up a little bit. But I've seen these stagers work miracles. This lady with Black Dog Staging, she staged the one that I actually renovated myself on the show, and she staged a few other ones. And when you walk in the house, it's the oh my goodness feel, and it definitely looks like a place that you could see yourself living. And what that really means is in the big picture for return on investment, you can get that much more money for it. And I'll tell you a cool story. Season one, I'm sorry, episode one on season two, we staged the house. It went under contract, and something happened with the buyer's bank, and they had to back out after they went under contract. Well, we called the stager off. We said, "Yeah, come get your stuff. The house is sold. We are all good." They came to get it, and we put it back on the market without staging. Well, the new buyer came in there, said, "We love it. We'll take it." And then the appraiser came out and appraised it for $30,000 less than what it appraised for while it was staged. So that we still moved the house, so no problem there. But to show you what staging can do, it appraised for $30,000, and this is on about a 1,000 square foot house. So staging does matter in the event that you're trying to make the max amount of money possible on your sale.
That's absolutely mind blowing to me that just having someone set a vase in the right place or adjust the furniture or of course cleaning it up and making sure it looks tidy, but to have that much of a difference in an appraisal is stunning to me. That talk about a ROI on selling a house.
What's the old saying that things are only worth as much as somebody's willing to pay? Didn't you tell me that?
Yeah. Oh, I probably did. I pour wisdom out so often that it's hard for me to keep track of what
No,
things I've said that will blow
I
your
know what you
mind.
said. You said something about a guy who thought he was a big shot, and it was your grandfather or your dad said, "If I could buy that guy for what he's worth and sell him for what I think he's worth, I'd be a millionaire." No, maybe that was
Yep,
somebody else.
that was definitely I wasn't the originator of that quote, but it probably did come down the family tree somewhere from a father and his father and so on. But yeah, um, one thing about those accent walls you told me about, I just remembered they're not very hard to put up. You talked about having a trim carpenter come in and do those. Look online because some of the ones you showed me from the 50/50 flip show looked so good, but close inspection, they weren't super detailed cuts where they had to use a miter saw at a funky angle. It looked like they were just some of it, and maybe I was wrong. It looks like maybe some prime finger joint, maybe some of it had a slight design on it. Is that true?
That's very true, and I'll say that the trick is drawing it out with a level or a straight edge and a pencil. And then basically at that point you're just measuring and cutting it. So if you're handy with a chop saw or a miter box or however you want to call that saw, it's something that you could definitely once you get started and get in the groove and you draw everything out on the wall, that's a 1 day project, but it is definitely, I don't know that it adds to the value of the house as much as it adds to the attraction from a potential buyer. But I watched it sell several of those houses when they walked in, and we saw that and we overdid it. And I don't think I'll ever build a house again without having accent walls in there. If you have the option to do something funky with the ceiling, sometimes there's some an ROI on that. Everybody seems to like a tray ceiling, but an accent wall is a much cheaper way to achieve the same effect.
Yeah, a 1x4, 16 feet long, depending on, what type you're getting. You're talking 15, $20, and you can two pieces make an incredible wall just by ripping the 1x4s in any kind of cut you want. I do believe that is an official ROI because you're putting little money in and you might not get a dollar just because of the accent wall, but it can cause the whole room to pop so well that they elevate the value of that room or rooms just because you added $50 worth of trim on the wall and you did it in a nice way. And again, the show has some great examples of that. Again, watch 50/50 Flip. You can see Donnie in action and you can see some of these examples. It's hard to talk about. Maybe we'll put up some photos on the website. Hey, before we wrap up, Donnie, uh, any any tips you have for homeowners looking to sell their properties? And again, as the focus of today's show was, maximize that return on investments.
Um, yeah, I'll close out by saying that don't discount the value of a good realtor. Realtors are all over the place. Some have made
Mhm.
their money and they don't need to go hustle. And there's a lot of realtors out there that are hungry. I'm building a house for a lady right now, and she is probably the most thorough, most well-connected realtor that I've ever worked with. And that being said, she balances a family, but she bats 1,000. She's hustling all the time, and she just works a lot of hours. But I guess that's what it takes in the real estate world. And the one thing you want to talk about is um, or insights. You want to say, hey, how what do you think my house would sell for? You don't want to overprice your house and it sits on the market for forever. And they're in tune with what's moving right now. They're going to do their research on the comps that have sold in your area, but having that good real estate agent, picking the right one, doing your homework and asking around, getting referrals. I think that's the key. You hire the wrong realtor and they're not really working for you. They're just working for themselves to make that quick sale. You're just a number. But the whole reason of the show was to say, hey, if I do X, Y, and Z to my house, how can I make the most money if I sell it? And the good realtor is key to that because you want to get them involved in the beginning of that process. You don't want to just do all these things and say, okay, what now? Like, how much is it worth now? Maybe talk to them and say, hey, walk through my house, give me some ideas. What are you seeing that you might suggest that I improve, and what other things might I want to steer clear of? And I just think that's probably the most important piece of advice I could give a potential seller.
And I think earlier in the show, as I said, we weren't mocking or making fun of real estate agents. They are important. It was just one that gave an example that I disagreed with on ROI, but you're exactly right. They're pros at what they do. They know the market. They know the neighborhoods. They know things you need to do. They look at contracts. You can hire an inspector to inspect the home. Let them take care of that. Let the real estate agent do that legwork of getting you to sell your house and get that return on the investment. And hopefully those ideas will help people because this is the time of year people start selling their houses, and some small investments can make a big return. It helps you avoid having to lower your price or offer concessions or allowances to fix stuff. So if you've got some time, take a little bit of money, you can really improve the price of your house and how much you sell it for. And again, return on investment, how much you put in. There's little things that we just mentioned that you can get more than 100% ROI back on it. And again, we'll put up the website. My dog Daisy made another appearance during the show. So if you're listening to this show on the radio, go to the website when we get this show uploaded, and you can see Daisy, the wonder dog, come up and visit because she heard you say black dog, and she immediately came in for a visit and another hug. So thecarolinacontractor.com will have all the links to the show for video and podcast form.
Man, that's funny. I didn't even think about the staging company drop would call the dog in. She must be pretty smart.
Look, we're talking about her again, and she's coming in for her final visit. She
Oh,
just
Daisy.
needs hugs. Can I have a hug?
Oh,
Yeah.
Daisy.
So this is what she does. So, well, I thank everybody for tuning into the Carolina Contractor Show. Again, go to that website. You can check out the video of the dog who will now become the most famous dog because she's going to be bigger than me or you on this show. It's going to be the Daisy Contractor Show. TheCarolinaContractor.com. Again, thanks for tuning in. And we will check you guys next week.
Hey, Eric, do me a favor.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great day.
I'll do it.
Thanks, everybody.